Hey guys, welcome back to Out of Left Field. Graham and Chris here with you. We are clearly into spring training now. A lot of stuff going on. Surprisingly, for the most part, man, a quiet week, really. Not a lot going on, but with the few things that we do have to talk about, some a drop in the bucket, some with a pretty good ripple effect. So as we put the ball in play on the show, let's start with the World Series champions. The Houston Astros, their first baseman, Yuli Gurriel, he underwent hand surgery on the 28th to remove the hook of his left hamate bone. It's basically like a hitter's wrist, I think is about the easiest way to describe it. It's an injury that is, I think, relatively common. It's definitely not anything that's, mind-blowingly new in the medical side of things. It's an injury that we've seen other guys have in the past. I know your biggest concern, because the first time we heard he was out, we didn't know for what or for how long. Looks like it should be a month and a half or so recovery, which is a good thing for the Astros as it puts them really without their starting first baseman maybe 3 weeks into the year. The only thing I think you got to worry about, and as a coach now, you tell me more about this, would be, since minor leagues haven't started yet, he's either going to be playing on the backfields, finishing up minor league camp, but he's not going to get those same game reps that he would get if we had the minor leagues going in full swing.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think that's probably...
That was magical right there.
I think that's probably pretty obvious. The problem is that you can't offer him the same reps in real time, because you've got to be able to win the games, right? Because this is no longer, we're not playing it. We're not practicing anymore. We're actually getting into the part of spring training, and then once you talk about getting into the season, we're getting into that part of the season where these things count and every game counts, and especially in what's probably going to end up being a pretty tough division out there in the West. This hurts, but it doesn't hurt as bad as we probably were worried about it hurting them when we first talked about this 4 or 5 days ago. When we were first talking about this 4 or 5 days ago, we were thinking, how bad is it? They sent him home from spring training, back to Houston to figure out what was wrong with him, because it wasn't the apparent wrist injury that they thought it was. And you and I had discussed, if he's out 8, 12, 16 weeks with something really bad, broken bone, something like that, then where do the Astros look for a first baseman? Because I don't think they're going to want to run the season with their AAA guy.
Right.
And, Napoli had just gotten snatched back up by the Indians. This could have been really bad for the Astros, but I think it's probably not going to be as bad as we thought it was going to be. Gurriel himself is pretty upbeat and about the whole thing. He thinks he's going to be back sooner rather than later. But I think you're exactly right. I think that that he can't take reps away from a guy who's going to be playing full time.
Right. And
you can't give him reps if there's a possibility of him re-injuring himself and going out for longer.
Right. And that is one of the concerns, is that, what is this going to do to him, power-wise long term? And I say long term, obviously looking more at the idea of, what's it going to do to him in this season. I don't think it's going to be one of those things where, we're going to see the next 5-6 years it hamper him. But at the same token, we did also see guys like, help me out with the name here, Giancarlo Stanton, who had a hamate bone injury. And, obviously there was a myriad of things for him that led to what we thought were a lot of the mental issues that we were having with him. But it's one of those things where this could end up sapping his power a little bit throughout the season. Might not get the same pop in his bat that they're used to seeing. they have a very potent lineup offensively. There's not a whole lot to worry about with that. They will pick him up. But it is something, if you are the Astros, you're going to want to see what's happening there. Make sure he's not pushing it. Make sure that, hey, maybe you bat him lower in the lineup. But yes, the fact that it's only going to be a 5 to 6 week recovery definitely puts you in a better position if you are the Astros than the idea of it being 3 or 4 months and you get yourself almost to the All-Star break and you're just now trying to work your starting first baseman back into the fold.
Yeah, exactly. Another thing that's pretty important to talk about here, though, is that Giancarlo Stanton's recovery time is involved a myriad of things, but his recovery time is absolutely not the usual recovery time for this. I think that's why Gurriel's so upbeat about this whole thing. Is Stanton missed half a season with his hamate bone injury. Right. I don't think that's what we're going to see from Gurriel. I hope not what we're going to see from Gurriel, but I mean, things are starting to get pretty competitive down there in Texas, and Gurriel going down and the Rangers making some moves isn't making that any less competitive. Right.
Again, I think we prefaced this a little bit, take it with a grain of salt. I mean, I don't think either of us sees, neither of us takes a ton out of spring training as being, man, they were the best spring training team, they're going to win the division. We've already kind of looked at what our divisional picks are going to be. Obviously, we'll make our season picks here in a couple of weeks as we get ready for the beginning of the regular season. But the Texas Rangers, and we talked about this a couple of weeks ago when it first came out that he was going to be throwing for multiple teams. We saw the freak last year. Lincecum was ripped. I mean, he had put on a lot of muscle. He had shedded some weight. I mean, he was cut. He was lean. He was throwing very hard. And this year, the Rangers were the favorite to sign him. We talked about with the Giants kind of restructuring up in the top of that front office, maybe they were going to want to, keep Lincecum or bring him back in. Said they would want to, but it looks like it just wasn't the right time and the right fit. He agrees to a $1 million base salary with the Rangers, incentives in there as well. The one that got me here, and you told me that you like this idea, they're thinking of using Lincecum as a closer.
I think that's a great idea.
But you felt pretty strong about it.
Yeah, well, I don't know if strongly about it. I mean, I think it's a good idea. Of all the ideas that they have, of all the places that they could put Tim Lincecum, I think that either middle relief or late relief, even into that closer position, is the best place for him. Because he's throwing a lot better. His command and his speed and his action is a lot better than it was in 2016. We've seen that from the video that they've shown of him throwing. We've seen that just in the way that he's been able to command the baseball. And even when he had command issues and he had speed issues, he was still good for an inning or two. It was really once you got into that third inning that he started getting knocked around pretty badly. And I think that if you can limit him to an inning or an inning or two, and you get Cy Young, Lincecum performance out of him for that inning or two, he'd be a great closer. He's not one of those guys that takes a long time to warm up. He's not one of those guys that requires, the full starting pitcher warm-up schedule with the stretching and all that stuff. Right. He's always been a guy who comes pretty cold into a game and just kind of dominates. And if you can get that performance from him as a closer, I think he can shut games for him.
So when I say 2011, what's the first thing that comes into your mind?
The beginning of the end.
2011 is the last time that he posted a sub-4 ERA.
Right.
That's a long time. Granted, he didn't pitch last year. When he did pitch for that little bit of time in 2016 with the Angels, if I remember correctly, I believe it's what he came back with. 68 hits and 39 runs and 38 in the third innings. I mean, like you said, it hasn't been great. that's one of the things. And granted, and I tell you guys, we always give Chris obviously the grief about being the Giants fan, but keep in mind, and if you guys don't remember us talking about this, Chris used to write for one of the Bay Area internet sporting news sites, and he covered the Giants. We talked about that. I think during the 2012 or was it 20? I think it was the 2012 World Series run.
World Series
that they had, and you were covering that as well. Of course, now he's with us. You can always find all of our stuff at OO Left Field on Twitter, Out of Left Field with Chris and Graham on Facebook. Be sure to tell your friends, have them give us a follow, reach out to us. We've had a bunch of you actually reaching out to us recently on Twitter and also on Facebook Messenger. We're always quick to respond. We'll always engage in conversation with you, as long as it's fair. Appreciate you guys bring that in, and our thanks as always to being brought to you by the Grueling Truth Network. Lincecum was highly effective out of the pen in 2012. We began to see. I think the hard part here is that where normally one guy kind of begins to fall and you can pick him up and you can have other guys, kind of pick up the slack, if you will. What ended up happening is that Matt Cain and Lincecum went down at the same time. We began to see that decline almost in tandem. So the Giants went from having these two aces who were, they had probably two of the top 5 or 6 pitchers in the game on that squad, and both began to drop. I think it's great that Lincecum is still trying to stay relevant in the ball game, and in the baseball world. He's one of those guys who, as good as he is, I think he's one of the guys maybe you look at putting into a booth somewhere, into a broadcast role. I don't see him being a pitching coach just because his pitching was, the way he pitched was so flippin' weird, but it worked for him. It just wasn't the normal kind of dynamic that you would see from a pitcher. I hope this works. The Rangers, to me, at this point, are grasping at straws. They have made a ton of pitching moves this year. I feel at this point like they are, they're just trying to find something, throw it on the wall, maybe it'll stick. But again, neither of us really have great expectations for the Rangers, and we'll be touching on them here in a couple of weeks as we do our divisional breakdowns. But this is one of those things that, sure, he's looked good, but until we actually get a chance to see him really in game form consistently, I tip my cap to him for going out there and trying, but I don't hold out a lot of hope for this actually being a great long-term answer for anybody in Texas.
I'm not saying that Tim Lincecum is the guy that's going to save Texas's season or put Texas in the postseason, but I think it's going to be fun to watch him as he tries to carve out a little niche for himself there.
Sure.
And, obviously, as a Giants fan, I have a soft spot in my heart for Tim Lincecum. I want to see him succeed. I want to see him do well. And so hopefully this works out for him. I really like to see it work out for him. I think he's a great kid, fantastic pitcher when he was on. He was a fantastic pitcher when he was on.
Oh, yeah. No, and, I'm laughing because you call him it goes back to our conversation last night where, baseball has its own vocabulary.
Right.
And, that only in baseball can you be playing an adult woodmen's bat league and call a 70-year-old kid, or something. It's just, it's one of the beauties of the game. Speaking of guys who have been signed, and I think we could pin the hopes of a team to, we talked about it last week. JD Martinez is a Red Sox. It's official. He was announced Monday, $110 million in a 5-year contract. That is not the main thing we're discussing here. That's great. They had a press conference. High five.
Right.
It's what got added into that contract that made it such a long process before he was announced that has both our antennas kind of up and looking around going, okay, the Red Sox are definitely covering themselves here. And we talked about the fact that Martinez could opt out after year 2. Now,
Right.
with some of these injury issues and the Liz Frank foot injury that he suffered early last year, the Red Sox have given themselves a ton of wiggle room to get out from underneath J.D. Martinez in multiple years and multiple ways if they find it necessary.
Well, and I think that that's important. He did have that Liz Frank foot injury last year at the beginning of the year, and that's one of those injuries where you're worried that this could become a chronic foot injury, and the last thing that Boston needs is to pay a guy $110 million and have him sit 30, 40, 50 games a season because of a chronic foot injury.
If you think that's the recipe for success, go ask people in the Angels organization if that works for you. You give a guy a ton of money and he's got a foot injury. Albert Pujols.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And it doesn't work. So what the Bucs have done, in my opinion, very intelligently, is they've made more than half of this contract dependent on him being healthy. They've given themselves way out should this become a chronic thing. You know, he can walk away after that second year, but the final 2 years of the contract, they can walk away if he has been oft injured or if the injuries are related to that foot. According to Evan Drellich, if Martinez spends 60 consecutive days on the DL in year 3 of the contract, which is the 2020 season, with injury related to his prior Liz Frank injury, the 4th year can be converted into a mutual option. Now, that quote, of course, coming from MLB Trade Rumors, but that's interesting to me because what the Sox are basically saying is, well, we're going to give you $50 million for the first 2 years.
Right.
Hugely front load this contract. Nearly half of the money in the first 40% of the contract.
Right.
And then we're going to cut the money back a little bit, but if you're healthy, you're going to get this whole 110, but if you're not, we're going to shake hands and we're going to walk away.
And that's the thing here is that with some of the language, they did add a third opt-out for him after the 4th season of the contract. But as you mentioned there with the Drellich, the Drellich quote from NBC Sports in Boston, the 4th year can also be converted into a mutual option. And that became the big thing here is that the way that the Red Sox were handling this is that they made it where, okay, not that they take away the options that J.D. Martinez can have, but they are now going ahead and saying, okay, you'll have your options, but if we begin to see some injury things creeping up here, we're giving you a boatload of money, to put on our uniform. But if you begin to be a liability for us, and we're just siphoning money into your bank account, and you can't do anything for us offensively, now we can walk away too. So the idea of this mutual option is, well, okay, I'm good with this, but now maybe you want to stay or we don't want you. Have a nice rest of your day.
What's interesting to me is that I think that what we're seeing with this contract is as close as a baseball contract is going to ever get to looking like a football contract, right? As close as a baseball contract is ever going to get to looking like a contract not fully guaranteed money. When you talk about football contracts, you hear these big numbers, right? 140, 150 million dollars, but only 60 or 70 million of it guaranteed.
Right.
And I think that that's really close to what we're seeing here, right? Is he's getting 50 million, but he has the opportunity to make 110 should he stay healthy and perform and not walk away from this contract. I think the way they've designed this is as close as the MLBPA is going to allow a team to get to a contract similar to that we see more often in football.
Yeah, and I mean, it kind of makes you want, and obviously we'll never know, but it makes you wonder what the dialogue was. What was the big hang-up? Obviously, he wanted, I think, 7 years and I think $1.25, something to that effect, if I remember correctly. I don't know numbers off the top of my head. I can't quote them to you verbatim. It's been 4 months since we've been waiting for this guy to find a home. But, you finally go ahead and you ink a deal, or you at least agree in principle to a deal. Then it takes you almost a week to actually put pen to paper. So, I mean, granted, he was getting poked and prodded and everything is dealing with this, but it's certainly, if you are Dave Dombrowski or anybody in that Red Sox front office, I mean, kudos to you. Kudos to you
Right.
for being able to go ahead and set yourselves up to, hey, we're putting a lot of money on the line here, but if it's not working, we can get out. And the great thing is, the majority of the options here still leave Martinez in control. He can get out if he wants to, during those points. But these mutual options, again, I want to make sure we're clear here. The mutual options do not kick in unless they are injury related for the Red Sox.
Right.
If
Right.
he is not injured, the mutual options don't exist. They are there to protect the Red Sox if we begin to see just the Lisfranc issue. Anything besides the Lisfranc issue doesn't. If he gets hit in the forearm and breaks a bone or breaks a bone in his hand, tough cookies. Okay, you're paying the guy his money if he wants to stay with your ball club. Only if it becomes the foot issue as a recurring problem is there. It's not like plantar fasciitis, but I do agree at the end with you on this. This begins to set a precedent, I think, for teams that, hey, you want big contracts? Great. But this allows us a little bit of play. I think the Pujols contract, at least to me, I know I brought it up a second ago, that plays so big in the way the Red Sox handled this.
Right.
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 I mean,
I completely agree.
It feels almost, you weren't willing to go 7 years. You hold them down to a half decade, hold them down to 5, and then it's, but if you can't stay healthy, we're out after 2. Sorry, not sorry kind of thing. So it is definitely a different way to handle it. It's not going to change the landscape of contracts as a whole, obviously. You're still going to get guys that are going to get their guaranteed money. But when you get guys like Bryce Harper, who had that horrific knee injury last year, I remember we went to dinner that night. Me, you, and your wife, we went out to Firebirds after we went, and I think it was game 2 of the series. And that's
Right.
we had seen, we saw on Twitter that there was an issue, and we saw it, and you and I both just went, his knee is destroyed, and thankfully it wasn't. But Harper has also been an oft-injured guy because he plays so hard. That's not a knock on him. I mean, he works his tail off, but if you begin to see some recurring things here, you might begin to see, okay, that's great that you want this money, and we might be able to give it to you, but there's going to be a couple of things here that we're gonna dictate before you just put that pen on the dotted line. So yeah, I think the Red Sox are trying to change the scope of things in a way that makes it beneficial for them down the road on bigger names.
I agree, and I think that that's probably an excellent plan on their part. Another thing that we've sort of talked about but not really discussed overtly, and I think that really it was you and me. I can't remember if it was just you and me talking about it or if we brought it up on the show briefly just as a blurb last week, but we've definitely discussed on the show the MLBPA, and I said, and I have said a couple of times now, that the MLBPA is, in my opinion, doing some things that might be hurting players' interest as opposed to helping players' interest, or hurting the game as opposed to helping the game. And I don't really know where this next issue falls.
Okay.
I think that revenue sharing is an important part of baseball. It evens the playing fields for small market teams. I also think that it is incumbent upon those small market teams who are getting that revenue sharing money to utilize it in a way that improves their team's performance on the baseball field. That is by signing players who can improve their performance on the baseball field.
Problem is, salaries. It's not required for salaries.
I understand that it's not required, and I'm not saying it's required.
Okay.
I'm saying incumbent upon the team,
right,
to choose to take that money and make their teams better.
Right.
And when you have teams like the Oakland Athletics who refuse to spend that money on salaries to hire talent and have it kept up with the quality of stadiums either,
right,
I have an issue. And I think that
and tell them what the four teams are, because the four teams here kind of, it screams, I mean, it's sad how the four teams mentioned kind of scream. We're seeing this as plain as day. It makes perfect sense.
Right. A's, Marlins, Pirates, Rays.
Yep.
The A's are actually being phased out of the revenue sharing program because of their performance with the revenue sharing money under the current CBA. And I think that that's a good idea, because the owners of the Oakland Athletics have time and time again refused to spend that money to make their team better. They have made Billy Beane's job so hard in Oakland that I don't understand how they still have a fan base.
Right. It's a cesspool in the front office and oftentimes in the dugout. Literally.
Yeah, well,
because you're just back. You're back.
You're backing into the dugout. It's bad.
Right.
I just, like I said, it's incumbent, in my opinion, to spend that money to make those teams better. And if they're not doing that, then I think the MLBPA has a legitimate grievance here. However, is filing suit or filing a grievance with Major League Baseball the right way of going about it? Are they? Is this the only recourse that they have? And
well, I think so, because I mean, it could end up going up to an arbitrator, but it's collectively bargained. So it's one of those things where the PA deals directly with the commissioner's office. The commissioner represents the owner. So yeah, I think a grievance, you have to follow it at that point. MLB says that they believe it has no merit. The Pirates president, Frank Connolly, said he believes this is, quote, patently baseless, end quote. And that was said to MLB.com's Adam Berry. And we'll talk about the Pirates here in a minute as we get into the Central Division. And there are some stuff with this ball club. It is not perfect in Pittsburgh by any stretch. My thing here, like you said, they are required, yes, to do things to improve the quality of the team. The question is, what constitutes improving the quality of the team? Is repainting the locker room because the paint was peeling and it was kind of depressing, is that helping to improve the quality? It makes gets guys a little bit more amped up, kind of gets makes them feel focused more at home. Is getting somebody in there and scrubbing all the showers and locker rooms down and getting some stank out of there, or buying 5 new TVs to put in the locker room or put in the video room so guys is it restringing the nets on the L screens or in the bat? It's little things that it can be. It doesn't have to be just salaries here. The thing is, aside really from the Pirates, and granted we have seen how much they're shedding payroll here, are we that freaking surprised? The A's have been a laughing stock, and granted, they have a ton of young talent this year, and are a team that should be fighting to get up into the top 2 or 3 of the American League West here very soon. If we don't think the Rangers will, the Angels are probably going to be a team that we should see up there, and the A's are starting to find their pieces, especially with the bats, to get up there. Granted, their best pitcher in Sonny Gray is now in pinstripes last year, and that's fine. I'm not saying that it's going to be this year, but they have good pieces in place. So the sad thing is, this is being done to the players who are still playing for this ball club. So, hey, we're filing a grievance because we don't think that you're using this money the way that you should. And at the same time, it's like, well, why the hell not? Right. If you think you're just going to pocket it, well, you already, if you're not losing money, I don't know. To me, it's just, I get this as a business, but are we that surprised? No, granted, with the Rays, maybe. And I'm actually surprised the Rays are on this because they completely returfed Tropicana Field, I believe, last offseason prior to coming into 2017. So maybe they just didn't spend that money this year. But hell, if you had, if you're kind of trying to subsidize what you did, they redid everything. New padding, everything to keep it soft, playable, nice. I had a chance to walk out there last year. It felt fantastic. But aside from that, are we that surprised by the Pirates, the A's, and I'm sure as hell not surprised when I hear the Marlins are involved in this. I can't imagine you are either.
I'm not. I'm definitely not. I think that of all the teams in the league, these are the 4 teams that we can all look at and go, oh, yeah, no, that makes sense. That makes perfect sense. Especially if you're a Marlins fan right now, you're probably going, well, it's about time.
Right.
Because the fact of the matter is that new ownership has gutted that team and not used any of these big revenue sharing dollars that they're going to be getting to back from that gutting of that team.
Now, I know that neither of us knows the answer to this question, so I apologize. I'm not trying to blindside you with it, but I just want kind of your thoughts, your take, your gut reaction to this. The Jeter Group didn't own the Marlins last year. So how is this, if you have removed all those pieces out of the front office and out of leadership, they're filing a grievance that at least Jeter can say, hey, wipe my hand. I didn't know. I had no idea. I didn't do that. So how, at that point, do you think if an arbitrator, if it goes to that point, if the Marlins organization is found to have improperly used, or I guess not used properly, if you will, to kind of, rob Peter to pay Paul in the description there, but if they did not properly use the money allotted in the revenue sharing, and it was not anything that dealt directly with that ownership group, how should that ball club be punished? You may not have an answer, but it's worth thinking about it.
That's a good question, man. Well, the obvious immediate punishment is loss of revenue sharing dollars, obviously, which is happening to the A's. And obviously, you can't just take them right away from that team because that's too much.
It's slowly phased out.
You phase them out just like you're phasing out the Athletics. Beyond that, I think that I don't know. I want to say things like draft picks and penalties of that sort, but those things don't mean as much in Major League Baseball as they do in other sports.
Well, and the sad thing here is, let's say that, for example, that to your point, you do take draft picks. Now you're taking the one thing away from this team that they're trying to gain to try and rebuild. It's like, hey, we're going to sell off everything because we have a new ownership group and we're tight on money. But now we're going to lose draft picks because your previous ownership group and management didn't know what they were doing or tried to cheat the system. And now we're going to lose some of those draft picks we were hoping to get by getting rid of all these players. And I get it. I mean, and the hard thing here is if they find multiple teams that did this, I mean, I think we would expect probably the same punishment to be levied. Maybe they try and say, well, this team spent some, but not all, and maybe you try and gauge it based on the amount that wasn't spent. But at some point, I think you kind of just hand down kind of a blanket. Okay, you guys didn't do this. Here's the penalty. But yeah, draft picks would just, to me, be kind of that. It would be that one where you're like, damn, really? Like we're trying to rebuild, and now we're losing the one thing that was kind of going to kind of help us. It's just, it makes you. At some point, if you're a Marlins, I don't think I can use the word fan anymore. If you're a Marlins, I don't know, man. You're an English major. Help me out with a word that kind of maybe fits what those people are now.
Bystanders?
There you go. Yeah. If you're a Marlins ticket purchaser,
it's like watching a train wreck.
Yeah, if you're a Marlins ticket purchaser, it's just one more thing to piss you off. It's like, wow, we lost all this. We've got very little left, and now, we're going to lose those because it's just, like you said, it's that team is. I'm not going to say the Marlins are a dumpster fire because I want to see.
That's.
Well, no, and I know the funny is it's an insult to dumpster fires.
No, that's not.
I mean, I was going to say. But in all seriousness, I mean, when we talked to Pudge, when I talked to Pudge at the golf tournament, he's like, man, I get what they're doing. We talked last week, guys saying, I get what they're doing. So I think really until we get a chance to see in the next, I get it sucks right now. I am in no way saying it's great, but I think if it actually works, okay, it's just you got to hate the thought or the possibility that in all this pain you might lose draft picks because of something that happened before this new group took over. That's all I'm trying to say.
Right. No, I agree. At the end of the day, for me, I think that this is something that the MLBPA is doing right. I think that this is what they need to do.
Okay.
So I think that these four teams and probably some other teams in the league as well, but especially these four teams who are frequent abusers of this program, I think this needs to be brought to bear on them. And I don't think that this is something that the MLBPA can just allow Major League Baseball or the owners of these teams to shrug away.
Agreed.
In the way that they tried to shrug these accusations away with their responses.
Right. Agreed.
It has no merit. It's purely baseless. Patently baseless, excuse me. I don't think that the MLBPA can afford to let the owners and Major League Baseball shrug these accusations away. I think they have to be addressed, and that if this has to go to, I hate to say this, but if this has to go to criminal, to
an arbitration,
but it has to go to arbitration,
right, in
court, that it needs to do that because someone needs to look at what these teams and audit what these are doing with that money, because I don't think that those things that you were talking about, painting the locker rooms or fixing up the bathrooms or things like that, I don't think that those really tangibly add to the enjoyment of baseball or to the performance of these teams on the field. This money is to keep fans from jumping ship into bigger market teams.
But see, that's where I think I was good with you until that point. This revenue sharing money isn't for the fans. Now, sure, it's great if you want to upgrade experiences and things that fans can do, but this revenue sharing is coming from owners for you to better things around your ball club. So to me, if that means updating your weight room, updating your video room, updating your locker rooms, scoreboards, sound systems, things that still affect a player day to day. Hey, you know what? I want to hear my walk up song. The sound's kind of muffled. It's not as good. And sure, salaries are part of it. But when you have a team that is trying to shed that much salary, the problem is you're not going to get them to say, well, since we're shedding salary, we're not going to use it all, and we'll just put this money back in the kitty. Well, no, they're not going to put the money in the kitty. They're going to try and find a way around it and just pocket the cash and have some extra income. And that's I think what we're seeing here is that I strongly doubt it's the idea that they didn't spend it at all. I'm sure it was, well, we'll do a little bit here and a little bit there. We're sure as hell not going to do it for personnel and for players. So the rest of it, we're just going to kind of, put it under the mattress. And unfortunately, the mattress got pulled away.
And I have a problem with it. I have a problem with them putting that money under the mattress.
Well,
I really do.
And that I'm fine with. What I was saying was, I think saying that it's for things done to keep fans from jumping ship. That's where I don't think it's that revenue sharing doesn't need to be focused on fans. If you want to, sure. Hey, we're doing things to better our ball club, and we're using it on this play a pool. And I'm just throwing out pool because of Chase Field. Hey, we're putting a pool out here. Okay, well, are your players going to swim in it? Nope. But we're going to have fans that are going to pay extra money to be out there, and it's going to garner more fans for our team and more support for our team. Then sure. But I think to do a ton of upgrades just for a fan experience, I get what you're saying, but I think there's a little.
That's not what I'm saying. No. You don't get what I'm saying.
Okay.
Because I'm not saying that you should upgrade specifically just for fan experience. I'm saying that this money should go into making the team on the field better. Fans have something to watch.
So are you saying
wants to spend money.
It should be completely personnel based?
No, not completely, but there should be some sort of requirement for them to spend X number of dollars on salary to improve the quality of the team. Because no fan wants to sit there and watch the Pirates lose 90 games a year for 35 years because they refuse or watch the A's learn.
Hey, it was 87 games last year.
Oh, excuse me. And nobody wants to watch the A's lose 90 games a year for 40 years because they refuse to spend money on salaries. It doesn't matter. You could have full virtual reality headset experiences in the ballpark with haptic chairs and the most comfortable seating in the world. And if you don't put a product on the field that people want to see, they're not going to go see it.
Now, hold on. You're telling me that if the D-back sucked and you had a VR headset and haptic chairs, you would be like, my team sucks. We're going to the game. You might.
No.
Really?
I might.
Yeah.
I might.
So then I'll ask you this and then we'll move on. Because I hate this idea. I hate this is done in the NBA. Do you want to see a hard floor, where a team is required to spend X number of dollars in salary per year? At minimum. See, I hate it because in the NBA, granted, I live in Orlando. The Magic signed Bismack Biyombo to a 4-year, $80 million deal. He wasn't worth it, but they had to spend the money to reach the floor. I hate that idea because then you're bound into this horrific contract that you just made because you were forced into doing it. I think it has to be within 90% of the, I think it's like 90% of whatever the salary cap is, something like that. There's a 10% grace. Is that what you're kind of wanting to see here? Where, hey, you have this much money, you've got to hit at minimum $90 million, $80 million a year in payroll?
It's hard to say that that's what I want because you're right. It does become problematic because then they just start paying players who aren't worth it more money. And then we already have an inflation problem in Major League Baseball.
Now we're perpetuating the cycle with players who probably don't deserve that kind of money. Now, granted, I understand we're a 25-man roster compared to maybe 12 in the NBA, but when guys like, and I'll throw a name out there, that's the idea of David Eckstein getting paid 15, 16, 17 million bucks a year. Eckstein was a great utility infield guy, but he wasn't worth 15 million a year. And I feel like that's what it would take us to.
Okay, and so what? Bear with me on this just for a minute. What if we didn't say that teams had to spend X number of dollars every year in salary? We simply said that if you're going to receive advertising revenue, or if you're going to see this revenue sharing money,
right,
then if your record is X number of games below 500, you must spend X percent of your revenue sharing dollars in new contracts the following season.
Give me a number just for giggles.
Okay, well, how much do the Pirates get in revenue sharing money?
That I'm not sure of. I would have to. That is. Let me see. See if I can find it. All right. So, just because I guess where my my question would be is, is it fair to force a into spending if they don't believe that spending is in their best interest right now? That's where I have the issue.
Okay, and I understand that. I get it. I understand the idea that, maybe they don't think that spending money is going to help them get better. Mm-hmm. But you can be damn sure that not spending money is not going to help them get better.
Granted, sure.
So when you have these teams that refuse to spend this money and their payroll is only $79 million, that bothers me.
And that I get, but then let me ask you on this sense, because I know that the idea of being able to spend it on things sometimes outside of personnel to an extent was one of the things that bugged you. If, for example, you are the A's, and let's say that they get $30 million in revenue sharing, would it bother you for them to spend that $30 million on upgrades to the Coliseum?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
See, why?
No, but because it's the Coliseum. The Coliseum is 1,000 years old. Tear it down and build a new park.
Okay, we'll
stop.
We'll say it's AT&T. Say it's AT&T.
Okay, and we're talking about the Giants.
Yep.
We have one of the highest payrolls in the league.
Well, I'm just work with me here, okay? I mean, the Braves just built a brand new stadium for their team, and the Braves are terrible. Okay. So my point is, I mean, if you want to try and pick a team that isn't that great, okay, if the Mariners put $30 million worth of upgrades into Safeco, or the Tigers did it into Comerica, that would bother you?
No. No, but I don't think it needs to be $30 million worth of upgrades. Is that necessary? Is
Okay.
$30 million worth of upgrades more important than 15 to 18 million dollars in salary and 12 to 14 million dollars in upgrades?
So you would like to see, if possible, a percentage requirement. Hey, 40% has to go to salary, 60% can be team and operations based.
Listen, if you're 10 or more games below 500 and you get $30 million in revenue sharing every year, I think you should have to spend 75% of that money on new contracts in the following year.
Okay.
Because the problem is that if you don't, if you just spend 10 years in a row putting $30 million in upgrades into your ballpark to make the experience better for the fans off the field, you've spent $300 million on ballpark upgrades to put a crappy product on the field every year.
Well, granted,
I'm
not saying they do that every year, but my point.
But what are they doing with it every other year? Then what are the A's doing? What are the A's doing with that money?
Well,
why are they not hiring ball players?
Well, obviously, I mean, I think they're not doing much with it, and that's what we're seeing. What my argument was is the idea that if you've got a crappy stadium, that players go there and like, God, this place sucks. Fenway has been that way at times. So has Wrigley, and with the most deference to those two hallowed stadiums, they were very old, and there have been massive upgrades to, yes, it still has that old nostalgic feel, but at the end of the day, when you go to Fenway Park, I want to play in the nostalgic feel with the
Wi-Fi
of today. So I think that if it comes down to, hey, look, we want to upgrade this, we want to make our stadium a draw for free agents to come into. I get that. I am in no way saying that every year you spend all of that money on upgrades. I'm just saying that if it comes down to a day where, hey, look, we know we're not going to do anything, we're the Pirates, whatever, we know we're not going to do anything, but, if we can fix this part of the stadium and fix this and add this, and my thing is, you know what? If there's this much revenue sharing, why in the hell were we bitching, pardon my French, about the idea of having to expand the nets to the end of the dugouts? If there's just money laying around, that should have been a pretty easy thing.
Well, but that goes into fan experience too. A lot of people are worried that fans aren't going to like those nets being out that far because they're not going to be able to get foul balls, which is true. Some fans are going to be a little perturbed that they can't sit behind the dugout and catch foul balls. But some fans are going to be pretty happy that they don't have to worry about their 4-year-old kid taking a foul ball to the face and dying at a baseball game.
Right. And that's like I said, and I mentioned this when we talked about it months ago. To me, the idea of being able to almost raise the last two bit of nets almost like a field goal netting and then tie them off would have been great because you allow guys to be close to the dugouts for your autographs pregame and you raise the nets. Good stuff, man. Again, we got off to a point where we didn't really pregame this. This wasn't any kind of pre-show meeting. It kind of just came up in conversation. So good stuff. Let's move over into the National League Central. It is time for our standings and where we look at what the 5 NL Central teams need to do to be competitive, or to at least try and put themselves into a position to get on the right track. All right. Obviously, last year, Cubs win the division. Brewers end up 6 games back of the division and just outside of the wild card as they ended their season. The Cardinals finish at 83-79, then the Pirates at 75-87, and the Reds with one of the worst records in baseball at 68-94. Worst record, I think, went to the Worst record was split between the Tigers and the Giants, 64 and 98. So, man, let's start it off. I as normal, we kind of go from the bottom. Tough thing here because the Reds made some changes early. Obviously, Zach Cozart gone, big time shortstop there, a big piece for them. They lose him. Votto is still there, and what I think Adnan Verk, our friend, believes as well, should have been an MVP year last year. Goldie as well. You got Barnhart catching. Homer Bailey seemed to be hurt a lot last year. This team is going to finish very low in the standings again. They are still very young. They're trying to start putting the pieces together. The Cozart loss, it hurts you up front because you lose that big name, but they weren't going to be competitive. It's the same idea as the Braves trading away Craig Kimbrell. We want to keep you because you're a fantastic closer, but we're not going to have a whole hell of a lot of use for you.
Right. And I don't mind the Cozart move so much. I don't mind. I don't think that losing Cozart is going to be the difference between whether the Cardinals end this season in third or fourth place or in contention for a wild card slot. I don't think that they're going to be in contention for a wild card slot, and I don't think that Zach Cozart puts them there. In my opinion, they finished this season just slightly better than the Cincinnati Reds do. I think I put St. Louis in third place in this division, behind the Brewers and, of course, the division favorite Cubs. The Cincinnati Reds, I think, are going to finish 10 games under 500. But I think the Cardinals are also going to finish 2 or 3 games under 500.
Really?
Look for the Brewers. Yeah, look for the Brewers to make a move for that wild card spot, first or second wild card spot in the National League, and finish this season 7 games over 500.
You think the Brewers finish at over 500?
Yeah, I think the Brewers finish 7 games over 500. I think the Pittsburgh Pirates finish this season. If they win 60 games, good for them.
Yeah, I think losing Garrett Cole obviously takes a pretty good chunk of games away.
10 probably at least.
Yeah, you're finally clear of the Andrew McCutchen drama that was created not by McCutchen, and the Pirates are up. Pirates have seemed somewhat disconnected, and this comes from David Freese, obviously a World Series winning third baseman with the St. Louis Cardinals. He was a big piece of that ball club, and Freese absolutely ripped into the ball club, a little bit into Clint Hurdle a couple of weeks ago in responding to multiple questions from reporters, and said basically there needs to be more urgency and accountability in the clubhouse. He said, quote, "The last 2 years, we haven't done as well as we could have because of our environment. That's what I think. I walk in every day and it's not in the air. The demand to win just hasn't been in the air. That's what you need. You can say all you want about how we're going to win, this and that, but if you don't walk in and you don't feel it and you don't see it in people's eyes, it's just not going to work." End quote. That is a strong statement from David Freese. Tells you at least how he feels about that clubhouse. And if this guy who was a World Series hero is feeling that, you have to imagine guys like McCutchen, Harrison, Marte are probably feeling it well. Yeah.
I agree. I don't know that I'm concerned at this point about Marte's feelings. After the position he put that ball club in last year, I don't think that I'm concerned about Marte's feelings right now. But
do you think if he had played the entire year, they'd have finished at or above 500?
No, I don't think he's. I don't think his WAR is 20. Right?
Well, they only finished, I think, 6 games back.
I thought they finished it. Oh, did they finish 75 wins?
75, yeah. I'm just curious. I was just curious as to what your.
I don't think so. I don't think so. I think had Marte played that entire year, they finished with 79 wins.
Okay. So
I think he's a plus. I think he's a +4 guy.
Okay. This is one of those things that I'm not so sure that. I think the Pirates still. I think the Pirates will push. I think they'll be right about the same as they were last year at 75 and 87. The Reds, same thing. If they make it to 70 games, good for them. I don't see it. To me, they just don't have the personnel. If Joey Votto has another year like he did last year, he better win the damn MVP. He was that good last year. And it's a guy that, eventually, man, I would love to see them move him. I wish they would move him. So, if he wants to get moved, to have a chance to finally win a World Series. They made it in the playoffs once or twice, and that's it.
Let me bring up, I actually went through this week, and I put on win-loss number predictions for each of these teams.
Oh, boy.
Let me see if I can find them. Okay, so I have the Chicago Cubs at 91 and 70. 91 and 71.
Okay, so you're losing one more game.
Right. I have the St. Louis Cardinals at 79. That's maybe a little low, but I have the St. Louis Cardinals at 79
and 83.
At 79 wins and 83 losses. The Brewers.
I disagree on that one, by the way.
The Brewers at 87 and 75.
So winning one more game, okay.
Right. And I have the Reds at 72 and 90.
So wait, so you have the Reds winning 4 more games than they did last year, and the Cardinals losing. See, I don't.
Oh no, I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry. That was the wrong team. I had those backwards. The Cincinnati Reds I have at 69 and 93. The Pirates I have at 72 and 90.
Okay. I can deal with the Pirates Reds a game or two there. I can agree with. To me, the Cardinals still have. The question for me is going to be can Bud Norris stay healthy? Left yesterday with a hamstring spasm. Happy birthday to him. Really, I always enjoy running into Bud whenever I get a chance to see him. Real great guy. Young Molina is still one of the best catchers in the game. Yes, he's getting older, but you still a guy you could battle with. The question is, does Matt Carpenter stay healthy? Colton Wong, I believe had vision surgery. You have Paul DeJong at shortstop. But the big thing is they picked up Marcell Ozuna from the Marlins. And he is a good bat, that outfield. Dexter Fowler still out there. Tommy Pham, this is Fowler's second year in Chicago, or I'm sorry, in St. Louis from Chicago. I like the Cardinals. Not saying that I like them to go ahead and surpass the Brewers. I don't think they will. You still need to get some pitching help. Fans have made noise of wanting Lance Lynn back. We'll see if that ever happens. But I certainly don't. I think that you can see the Cardinals pushing at 83 and 79. The Brewers probably closer to 88, 89 wins with the acquisition of Yelich and Kane. And the Cubs, if Darvish pitches well and you get Quintana now at a full year with the ball club, the Cubs should be able to be at 95 wins this year.
Possibly. I could concede 95 to the Cubs. I still think that the St. Louis Cardinals are minus 3 or 4 wins from last year. Dexter Fowler didn't do anything when he went to St. Louis. So unless he can change my perception of him as a hitter, don't look for him to be the guy that makes a difference. Marcell Ozuna is a good bat, but don't look for Dexter Fowler to be on that train, because he certainly wasn't on it last year. He went down to St. Louis from Chicago and certainly didn't repeat his 2016 performance by any means.
And that's what I am expecting better from him.
And I would like to see more out of Tommy Pham, because Tommy Pham had a good first half, but he fell off hard in the second half last year. And I don't think, he's a young guy, but I don't think that he's enough to put them even back where they were last year when they had 83 wins. I think 79, 80 is a good number. I don't think they get to 500 this year.
Okay. I think they still have the pieces to do it. Carlos Martinez.
I hope I'm wrong. I like watching the Cardinals. That's always been a really good team to watch, especially to watch my Giants play, but to watch the Cubs play has been the Cardinals. And the Cardinals have been dominant in that division for a long time. So, the nostalgic baseball fan in me wants to see the Cardinals do well, because, that's what the Cardinals do. But I just don't think that this is their year.
Yeah, and the one thing, too, the one guy we haven't mentioned that you would expect, Lemus Diaz now, who was he's with the Blue Jays. Was a shortstop for them last year, or last couple of years, a guy we thought he was going to be just on top of it. And in Toronto now. So, like I've said, the Cardinals are kind of the in my opinion, the Spurs of Major League Baseball, and as the Spurs are, I think their run is coming to an end. I think 500, right about there, plus or minus a couple of games, what we can expect. I'm going for the plus just to be nice. You go the minus. I don't massively disagree with you there. We'll just a matter of where they come out. Are they going to come out in the playoffs? I doubt it. National League should be a fairly solid league here, spread out in multiple divisions. Well, in 2 of 3 divisions, because the NL East is not going to matter. But yeah, I'm at least with you as far as that part goes, so that's fine.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on both the Cardinals and the Spurs. Once Tony Parker and Ginobili are gone, that team's done.
Tim Duncan was kind of that piece, and
Tim Duncan was the signal point, right? He was the torchbearer. And once he left, he passed that torch to the Tony Parkers and the Manu Ginobilis. But once those two retire, which I assume for Manu Ginobili is probably going to be this year, and Tony Parker either this year or next year,
I think both go this year. I know we're in a basketball, but Ginobili has been, it was a 1-year deal for him. Parker has been on the bench. They both need to go. I think the Spurs will be looking for new top players and a new coach. I think Pop will also retire, not be fired. I think he will go ahead and walk out with those guys as well. So there you have it, guys. We pretty much we expect the standings to be the same. So we expect the Cubs. That kind of takes away from our picks, and of course, this might change. I don't. Do we expect the standings to be the same? Yes, we have Cubs first, Brewers finish second, Cards third,
Pirates, we do.
Pirates fourth, and the Reds last.
Nope, that's not what I think. Oh no, it is what I think. I'm sorry. I have my team name swapped out. I'm sorry.
Hey, I'm just here.
I'm sorry.
I'm just here.
I have the Reds listed above the Pirates, but I have the win-loss records with the Pirates above the Reds, and so I'm reading it and it's not making sense. My brain's not. I apologize to everyone for my inability to organize a simple chart.
Chris, we've been apologizing for you since the show debuted, so it's fine. It's just your everyday normal stuff that we do.
That's fair.
You're like a 10-pound steaming pile of stuff.
Are we recording?
Yes, we are. Oh, I wish we wish you guys sometimes could enjoy the bloopers that happen behind the scenes on this show, either before we get started or the ones that we're like, nope, can't use that one. There's kids listening. We definitely have our fair share of, old Army moments still. Guys, again, thank you all for sticking with us. Been a kind of a quiet week, we managed to still get a decent amount of time in here. Let us know what you think on the revenue sharing side of this. Do you agree with us? How should revenue sharing be divvied up, if it should be divvied up? And we'll discuss a couple of your responses on next week's show. Shoot us a message or comment on the show's on the show page, of course, once we put the show up, and share it on Facebook. Out of Left Field with Chris and Graham is our Facebook page. You can always comment or leave a post on the Out of Left Field baseball community, or tweet us at OO Left Field on Twitter. Make sure to check out the Grueling Truth Network. Man, can you believe the Underwear Olympics just finished? The NFL Combine, the draft is about a month and a half away, so getting you plenty ready there on the Grueling Truth. Plus, March Madness is going to kick off, so I will have ESPN turned off for a month or so, because that's all we talk about. And college basketball is great, but I mean, maybe I want to watch it with this whole FBI thing, but I'll just put it on baseball and watch that. Nothing like coming home and watching baseball at 10 o'clock at night, and it's bright and sunny because it's a rerun. But I don't care. It's baseball. Matt, are you so next week? You are traveling, so I guess either we might try and do the show a day or two early, or you might just get me next week. Chris always seems to be on the travel, but he gets a chance to go to Haiti for a it's a school trip of some kind for your high school. Is that correct?
So the Interact Club at my high school, which is the Rotary Club, some of you might know it as a Rotary Club from way back in the day. They changed the name. The Rotaries decided to change the name to the Interact Club some time ago. I don't know how long ago, but the Interact Club at my high school did a huge collection of school supplies and personal supplies and stuff to send down to a school called Jubilee School. It's in a devastatingly impoverished area of a country that is in itself devastatingly impoverished. Nearly 80% of people in Haiti live in poverty. But they sent these supplies down to this school in Haiti, and we've
and it's attached to an orphanage, right? I mean, I think I know. Maybe
there's an
orphanage. Where you're going, but
there's an orphanage near there, yeah. And we'll be staying near the orphanage with the pastor who runs that orphanage, and heading into the school. But we have an opportunity that we're going to be able to take two of the students who are involved in this collection of materials, two seniors, down there to meet the kids and meet the people who run this school, look at the school, get a hands-on feel for what life is like at a school where, it's not poverty like kids can't afford cell phones. I'm talking about kids here entertain themselves and are quite happy and to play jacks with rebels.
Right.
So it's not the difference between the haves and the have-nots. It's the absolutely have-nothings. And so to go be able to get a hands-on experience with these kids and see what their life is on a day-to-day basis, and I think it's going to be great for them. I think it's going to be great for me. I'm really looking forward to it. Going to Haiti, going to a place, Gone Ives, Haiti, which is again, devastatingly in devastating poverty.
Right.
Obviously makes you a little, wary, but I've been worse places.
True, yes.
So I think that this is going to be great, and I'm really looking forward to it. But I will be gone until the 14th of the month. I'll be gone from the 10th to the 14th, and there will be no calling in from Haiti. There's not going to be phone service or internet. So
we will either be doing the show prior to him boarding the plane, or you will get a show of just me, just blabbing on, which So pretty much like normal, I think. All right.
Yeah, I think so. Pretty normal.
Well, man, have a safe trip. Hopefully, we'll have a chance to talk with you. We'll have the show before that. If not, we look forward. I know. I'm looking forward to it. I know our listeners are as well of hearing what you're going to get a chance to do over there. Hopefully, have some fun. Get an interview with a couple of the kids who might be playing in the big leagues. That'd be awesome too. Might find one or two there. But overall, just stay safe. I know there's been talk of revolutions and that kind of thing, trying to get away from the president and leader of Haiti. Not always looked upon at the highest. So watch your six and have a good time. And if we don't talk this week, by God, we'll talk to you when you get back. So enjoy. Guys, this has been another episode of Out of Left Field, brought to you as always by thegruelingtruth.net. Be sure to check them out for all your sports needs. Thank you, as always, for hanging out with us, for making last week's show one of our biggest shows to date. We appreciate it. We look forward to growing. We are trying some new stuff now that hopefully in the next month or so, you're going to get a chance to get a whole new take and a whole new feel for what it is that we do here on the show. We're going to try and start coming to you on some different platforms. So stick with us. Keep tuning in. We always enjoy hearing from you guys. Looking forward to talking to you next week. You might get me. You might get us both. But either way, we're coming back at you out of left field on the Grueling Truth Network. For Chris, I'm Graham. Have a great week, guys.